And that tariff relief for Canada's agricultural sector is notably only for this year. Heath MacDonald was in China on that trip with the Prime Minister. He joins us now. Hi, Minister. It's great to meet you. Great pleasure to welcome you here to studio. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you, Vessi. It's nice to be here.
I want to start on the agricultural tariffs that were removed until the end of 2026, the Chinese tariffs, and in particular something that you told my colleague Judy in your press conference today, which is essentially that they are time limited because you said basically it was in the remissions relative to steel. Can you qualify that? Is it basically because we did not drop the Canadian tariffs on Chinese steel that there is a time limit to the relief from those agricultural tariffs?
No, I think, Vessi, look, I mean, there's lots of things left on the table that we have to negotiate with China, and, you know, that may be part of it, but there's other things as well. This all came together relatively quickly, and we were, you know, a little bit maybe overwhelmed to some extent on everything that happened. There's been a lot of negotiations, a lot of hard work, a lot of people putting a lot of effort into it. But I can tell you, even from the beef, which we really couldn't announce when we were in China, and it was coming back to Canada, that we just did it, I believe, yesterday. We've already seen action on some of these items. We've seen one importer from China importing, signing off on 60,000 tons of canola. We've seen a large exporter of beef going next week to China. We've seen approximately 20 establishments listed for export into China that are in Canada. So things happened really quickly, and it's something that you know, we've got more to do on this, but the door is open, and we need to exercise expediency as much as possible.
And I can certainly appreciate the success where beef is concerned. My question, though, Minister, with great respect, was around canola meal, lobsters, crabs, and peas, and the sort of initial incongruence of why we are going to allow 5 years of additional access from the EV market perspective for only 11 months of relief from tariff.
Well, I think the agreement when we left was to continue the collaboration and cooperation and the discussions. I think we had very genuine, down-to-earth discussions, even with President Xi when I was there with the Prime Minister. And look, I can tell you that the attitude in China, even from when I was there in the fall with meeting Minister Su, basically changed. And it was very interesting to see it, because as soon as President Xi basically decided that this is the process and how we were going to go, the door started open immediately for businesses here in Canada. So we're excited. Obviously, we're cautiously optimistic, and but we maintain the cooperation and collaboration with these people. It's an extremely important market. It's the second largest economy in the world, and they're growing at a 5% rate annually. So we need to you know, be there and be in the room for our sectors.
But what does that mean for those sectors that will only see relief through to the end of 2026? To be blunt, if it is even in part tied to the remaining tariffs on Chinese steel, does that mean that your government is open to removing those tariffs?
Well, again, the communication is going to be ongoing, and I think that, you know, time and time again, people have, you know, asked that question, but it's like, this is ongoing. This happened relatively quickly. I was just informed of the beef issue when I had a meeting with the minister in China. So this is how quickly this has evolved, and we'll have further negotiations and further communication at every level. And we're looking forward to it. And I can tell you, I met with 20 sectors about 2 hours ago from all across the country, representing every industry basically within the agriculture sector. And I can tell you that they're pretty excited about what we've seen so far.
And I can certainly understand why agricultural groups and that sector more largely would be excited. But I know you're also well aware that the EV sector is not excited, that the auto sector, the Premier of Ontario, is not excited. I can only imagine if your government were to remove tariffs on Chinese steel, that would greatly impact a sector that is already, you know, down and out thanks to the tariffs from the U.S. president, how much more of an impact that would have. Can you be clear? You said conversations are still ongoing, that you're open to discussions. Does that mean that your government is open to removing tariffs on Chinese steel? Because that is consequential to the sector domestically.
Look, hey, Vessi, look, I'm the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. That might be a better question for Minister Jolie, but I can tell you
I mean, you sit around the cabinet table with great respect.
Well, we just arrived back on Saturday night, so you know, this happened relatively quickly, and it's something that I think we can all you know, take a little pride in, that we made these decisions, we acted as promptly as we could. This happened a lot quicker than even I think we anticipated. But I think the door, you know, we were leaning on an open door, and I think the door opened when President Xi decided it was time to do more business with Canada. Look, I give a lot of credit to our Prime Minister. He's worked extremely hard on this. He's been very determined, you know, to help, for example, canola, a $4 billion industry. I mean, that has a major effect, a trickle-down effect on our ecosystem of our economy, especially in the prairie provinces. So we're going to continue to maintain those conversations and the collaboration.
Do you believe, Minister, that should China be upset with something Canada does in the future, that it will not once again leverage the position it holds with the canola sector and once again apply tariffs just as it did back in 2018, just as it did last year? Like, is there anything to insulate Canada from that happening again, or is the door just so wide open from your perspective?
Look, the geopolitical landscape has changed dramatically over the past year, and it's really tough to determine what anybody's going to do in the future. In fact, what they're going to do tomorrow. So what we got to do is control what we can control, and if we can control, you know, opening up markets and reestablishing markets in China, then that's what we need to do. Diversification is going to be extremely important for our ag sector and agri-food sector going forward, and what we're trying to do is fulfill that. So we need to act quickly, as they say, as the iron is hot, and strike. And we're trying to do that. Next week I'll be in Dubai. So the Prime Minister is obviously on the move. So he's making his way around the world and trying to create new deals for Canada. And that's what we're trying to do. I think it's important.
But what's the cost that your government is willing to bear on behalf of Canadians when it comes to China? China is a very specific actor in this world. 18 months ago, I was covering a Liberal government that had designed an entire Indo-Pacific policy aimed at countering China's ascent. You are now here today, and the Prime Minister saying to Canadians, things are different because of Donald Trump, so we've got to do what we've got to do. At what cost, though, if China is willing to display or sort of repeat the behavior that it already has when it comes to the agricultural sector and canola specifically?
Well, like I said, we don't know what they're going to do tomorrow or the next week or the following week, but any other country is very similar to that. So
to China? Any other country is similar to China?
Any other country can change their mind on any trade issues at any time. We've seen it. We've seen non-tariff barriers in the EU. So I think we need to accept the present and take them at their word, basically. Face-to-face meeting with the Prime Minister and President Xi went over very well. So we're going to continue to act. Fundamentally, we make decisions on our values each and every time we make a trade deal, and we'll continue to do that.
Is there not some, you know, natural skepticism from Canadians when they hear from you that we should take, you know, the Chinese Communist Party at its word, given all that we know about what it means to our own national security environment? The Prime Minister himself 7 months ago identified China as the biggest security threat to this country. All that we know about, you know, how it props up Russia, what it does with Venezuela, what it does with Iran. Should we really be taking China at its word? Why do you feel that is okay to do?
Well, I think, you know what, we trade with many different countries around the world, and all those countries have different values from what Canadians have. And we have to judge ourselves on what's at stake and what's present to move this country forward. This is certainly plays a significant part in the economic driver of Canada, and we need to face value it and to take them at their word at the present time. That's really all you can do. I think. It doesn't matter if you're in Dubai or if you're in somewhere in the United States or wherever. I mean, you need to continue pressing forward to grow Canada and to ensure that we do everything possible to be successful, sustainable, and prosperous.
Even if it makes us more vulnerable to a partner that has nefariously acted towards us from even just a simple economic perspective in the past?
Well, look, I think you have to take it at face value, and you have to ensure that you know, you don't lose your values. I mean, we are full of integrity, Canadians, and I appreciate that. But we also need to continue to create the economic value that, say, canola has to this country. or lobster or pulses. So I think it's important that we continue to, measure up each and every decision that we make on the trade front.
Okay, Minister, I will leave it on that note. I'm out of time. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Thank you.